This time we're doing things a little bit differently. I've just been in Singapore just a few weeks ago, and during my trip there, we teamed up with local coffee company Asylum, and we did a bunch of different coffee events. And what we're going to show you here is actually a series of 3 different videos in 3 different parts where we discuss different aspects of coffee pretty much. The first one is what they refer to as the Battle of the Brewer. So it's me talking about just different pour over methods and the different qualities and kind of aspects that comes with that. The second one, it's focused on green coffee, sourcing, and we're all kind of doing a long cupping together, discussing certain taste profiles and where flavors in coffee actually comes from. And the last and final one, number 3, is a little bit of a Q&A/book presentation where I share more about the story behind April, how we ended up where we are today, and just an open Q&A with the people that were kind enough to join us at that event. No, so I wrote a book, right? And I figured I will tell you something about the book because it's a little bit interesting, at least from my perspective. And then I think we're just going to open up for a little bit more of just a Q&A as more of like a summary of today. If you guys have more questions of kind of any shape or form, preferably coffee related or business related, also an interesting aspect of coffee, I think, then you're more than welcome to just kind of go for it, right?
Yes.
So why write a book? I think that's a very relevant question to try to answer if you write a book, right? Because preferably you should have some kind of purpose with what you do, right? It makes more sense, I think. The reality for me, like looking back when 2 things. One, COVID happened. I had nothing to do. And I could either watch Netflix or write a book. So I wrote a book and I opened a store. That was like my pandemic. But when I started in coffee, and I think that's very common for a lot of people in coffee just in general, it's hard to know how to do things. It's hard to know where to go, right? So let's say I start in coffee and I want to be the next Tim Vendelbo, right? Very famous Norwegian coffee roaster. If people don't know who he is, you should definitely try his coffees. It's the best. How do I actually become him? Like, how do I start a coffee roastery? How do I become a person that can roast coffee? How do I become a person that can buy green coffee? I think all of these things are fairly random and fairly difficult to understand for someone moving into the coffee industry, right? At least it was for me, and that was 10 years ago. So I hope that changed a little bit. I think it's potentially a little bit easier now, right? But I came to a point in my own industry where 2 things. One, I wanted to reflect on my own future in the coffee industry, as in, have I actually done anything relevant in the industry? Should I stay in coffee? Which I think is also like a healthy question that I ask myself a lot. If you guys ever read the book, you would know I have an expiration date on my time in coffee, which I put basically before I started coffee. So it's basically reflecting on my own journey, but also trying to come up with a little bit of let's say a map for how you actually potentially can end up starting your own company or becoming a coffee roaster or whatever that might be, right? Because when I started in the industry, I had no clue. And I don't think many other people had so much clues either, because it was all new and we didn't really know what we were doing, right? And I'm always imagined that if I had like James Hoffmann, which is not just a YouTuber, it's also founder of a very famous coffee roastery. If I had James Hoffmann, Tim Vendelbo, Jeff Watts, a few other people, if they actually share their journeys, and I'm not hating on them for not sharing, but if they did, I'm envisioning myself getting to where I am much faster, much better, and much smarter, right? So basically, bottom line is that especially coffee is not as good as it should be. Which is something I very strongly believe in. I think we're pretty bad for the amount of time and people that are invested in this industry. And I think a big reason for that is because there is no blueprint. There's not enough shared material for how people end up where they're ending up, right? I think that's difficult. And I'm not necessarily saying that my own journey is better or worse than anyone else's journey, but at least it's in a book, right? So you can read it. It's a fairly honest book in most cases, or in all cases, perhaps. It's interesting when you write a book because there's kind of your perspective of that book, and it's a perspective that other people might understand or not understand, which I think was one of the most kind of interesting parts of writing. It took about 2 years of writing. Don't worry, I had like professional help, so it's not completely random. I wrote everything myself, but I worked with a person that basically knows books and read through it and went like, Patrik, this doesn't make any sense. Do it again. And there was a lot of that. Until I started to kind of get a hang out of it and something, decent came out of it, right? A big part in what I've done in my kind of coffee journey has always been believing in sharing information. Sometimes very opinionated information, but like a perspective, right? And I think it's also important to always underline that I always have a lot of respect and understanding for anyone in the industry, regardless of what they do, infused or not infused, right? Because in the end of the day, which is kind of a lesson that took me a little bit of time to understand, if you start a company, you do that to represent your perspective in that, right? Which means we should always respect the choice of others to do whatever they choose to do with that company, because it's none of your business to think otherwise, right? I think a lot of people often believe that a company is created to make you happy. And it's true in the sense that April is created to make me happy, but that doesn't always correlate with making you guys happy, right? So the very foundation of April is that we are not for everyone, and we will never be for everyone, right? But we will always respect everyone.
Yep.
So that's like a different story of it. The journey in the book, I'm not going to say too much about it. It's better if you just read it. But the whole process is basically dictating from what did I do before coffee? Just a short story, don't worry. And then how did I actually get into coffee, which I think is an interesting conversation to have. I think most people in the coffee industry that is doing very relevant things have one thing in common. It's a deliberate choice to enter the coffee industry. I think those are the people that are actually doing good stuff and have been doing really good stuff for a long time. Coffee industry will always be this, your first job because you're doing something else, which is quite different from how I ended up in the coffee industry. And then it basically dictates then how do I go from basically doing dishes in a coffee shop, which I think is where most of us start in some shape or form, to learning how to roast, moving to Berlin, in my case, being better at roasting, getting a bit of international status in the industry, and then starting to compete, and then what I invested in those competition processes and kind of how that took me to wherever I am today, right? Good or bad, right? So it's an attempt to write a very, again, honest story without much. It's basically like, this is how it is. Then people can kind of take it or leave it and do a little bit whatever they want with it, right? How I started April, what was the process, where did I get the money, or where did the money come from? All of these things, right? Which I think is quite difficult, right? And there was someone that asked before, maybe she left now, but asked, for example, how do I, buy direct from these producers? How do I actually get a hold of them, right? And I think the key to a lot of those questions, and whether they're starting a roastery, competing in a competition, that guy over there, that is trying to brew me a coffee now, but that's not going so fast. He's going to compete in the competition soon, so we're helping him. Yeah. No, he's happy. The whole point is that if you want to do stuff like that, there's a lot of people you can just ask, right? And I mean, that's important. You're not giving Stuart a coffee? No? Okay. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. At least I have coffee. That's something, though. No, but one of the commonalities in that whole process has really been I think there's one simple rule in this industry is probably applicable to a lot of things, is that the people you actually want to learn from are always going to be happy to help you, and the douchebags that don't want to share, you probably don't want to learn from them anyway, right? Because they're probably not very good at what they do. So it's I think there's a very kind of common thing in the industry at large, right? You could literally, I'm not going to say you should call Tim Underbo because he will hate me, but you could probably, and he would pick up the phone and probably answer a question if you had one, right? It's just that most people never never make that phone call. And I think the interesting question is maybe why you don't make that phone call in the first place, right? And I'm the kind of guy that would make that phone call or like book a flight ticket and go and knock on his door if that would help me, right? Because in the end of the day, whatever you do to need to do to get there. I mean, you know that yourself, right? Being a business owner, it's an interesting process. It's not always easy, but there's so much you can learn from how other people have done it before you, and it's so unnecessary to go through. There's this common thing in entrepreneurship. We talk about failing. We talk about like startups. We're failing fast, and we do iterations, and we're agile, and all of that is kind of bullshit. When you could just call the person that did exactly what you did before you and just ask them, and they will tell you what not to do, right? But humans is this interesting species where we like to fail ourselves, and I much rather fail with other people's money or other people's experience rather than my own, right? And I think I usually say that like starting April was a process that started the day I started in the coffee industry. Right? It wasn't the day I, sent in a paper to the Danish government saying I want to register a company. It was a much, much longer process where I spent a lot of time making various mistakes with other people's money, not my own.
How lucky.
No, exactly. It's so much more. Not that I made so many, like at least not financially bad mistakes, but the whole point being it's a process, right? And I think that's something that we often forget in the industry. And I think, again, that loops back to why we are not where we should be as an industry, right? I'm trying to think of if there's anything especially interested in the book I should mention. But
some people buy the book and never read it. They just like his signature on it.
Like that guy over there. He's like, I arrive on Monday, say, I read your book, and then I've been like questioning him the whole week, and he like, don't know anything. You're like, what? No, I mean seriously, it's actually a great analogy, right? Because the people that buy the book and don't read it are never going to do anything relevant in their lives. Not because the book is relevant to read, but because if you want to do something, do it properly, right? If you're not going to read the book, don't buy the book.
Yeah,
it's a waste. Right? In all shapes and forms, right? And I think that's a very, very simple way to look at it, but also very, very true, right? Everything requires effort, right? Deliberate effort over time will basically allow you to do whatever you want to do in any shape or form, right? The issue is that people don't do that. And then why people don't do that, I don't know. That's a different story.
Shortcuts, lazy.
Is there, like, a question to you guys, is there anything like specifically you're interested in kind of my journey, right? Is there someone here that is about to start a company, or someone here that wants to, like, I don't know, work in the coffee industry that doesn't work in the coffee industry, or is there like anything? There's a lot of different stories I could tell you, right? But it's more interesting if it's relevant to you guys.
What actually helped you up from it so you can be good at what you do?
Come again?
Like, what helped you actually affirm to yourself that what you're doing coffee at might not be good, aside from being like most likely?
So good. I mean, that is the answer, I think. But I mean, so the way I'm going to choose to answer that is to give you the example of how I really got into the coffee industry. It's a little bit of a story, so you have to give me like a few minutes. But the thing is, so I was working with something very different. And it's not important what that is. You can read the book and you will know. But that kind of work had me end up in San Francisco and Silicon Valley quite frequently. And it was Silicon Valley, to be fair, it's not San Francisco, but I used to stay in the Mission District in San Francisco, and used to always like walk down to this coffee shop, 4 Barrel, back before they did stupid stuff. Just saying. I did actually question whether I should put them in the book or not, but we were honest here, right? And it was 4 Barrels, so I put them in the book. And the thing is, I'm this kind of guy that would always go to the same coffee shop every single day, right? And at that time, I was a consultant and had my own company. And I was working with this coffee roastery back home in Gothenburg in Sweden. And I didn't know anything about coffee. I was helping the dude basically package his company to hand it over to his first external CEO. So that was like my mission, or my company's mission. And then whenever I was out traveling, I would ask him, where should I drink coffee, right? Because this guy was clearly into coffee. So he's like, where do I go? And then he was like, yeah, you go to 4 Barrel. So I went to 4 Barrel every day for like a week and a half. They opened 7:30 in the morning, and I was there on the dot. Boom, coffee. And the interesting thing with 4 Barrel is that you come in and you kind of face with these 2 espresso machines that are facing towards you, and they pump out coffee. Then you can go to the left. There's a big sign, weird animal heads on like the wall. It's an American thing, right? And then it says like slow bar. And then they have this one dude with like 4 Hario V60 stations and a GS3 La Marzocco 1 group machine standing in. He's like brewing coffee, and dude, like the slow bar is for the people that are not in a rush, right? So I always go to the slow bar, I wait for the coffee. Same dude every single day. Like he clearly works a lot, this guy. And then one morning he was like, yeah, you're gonna compete next month? And I was like, what on earth are you saying to me now? I just want my coffee. He's like, yeah, it's just like barista competition next month. And then I go, okay, I don't really care. I don't say that because I'm a nice person, but I think that. And then I go, okay, I just want my coffee. And he's like, yeah, like, are you in the coffee industry? Because I was going there all the time, so he thought I was like a barista or whatever. And I said, no, I just want like my espresso, please. And then, he's starting to brew a pour over, and it's like, that takes like 4 minutes. He's like, and this is how we do the competitions. And he walks through like 4 espressos, 4 cappuccinos back in the days, 4 signature beverages. And he was so excited, this guy. It was unbelievable. And I was just like, dude, I'm going to go and have a meeting at Google. I don't have time for this. But I had the whole pitch, and I was like sitting down, and like I was sitting there and like YouTube. I was like, okay, coffee competitions, search. And then, what's his name? I almost forget. Stephen Morrissey. He competes so this is the first competition I ever see. Stephen Morrissey competes in Denmark in the World Barista Championship. And basically what he does is that when he's about to serve his like 4 milk beverages, he pours 4 individual like latte art patterns like on stage. I think that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And this again was before I was in coffee. So he got me really hooked on these competitions. So I fly back to Gothenburg. And on the plane, I keep on watching these videos, and it's like super interesting. And I tasted like, I get like airplane coffee, and it tastes pretty shit, right? And then I go like, well, how would this score in a coffee competition? Because now I'm like interested. Because the way it works in coffee competitions is that you like pitch how your coffee is tasting. And then the judges will like, yeah, it tastes like this. Like, no, it doesn't taste like this. So I come back home, I land, and I'm like, fuck it, I need to like figure this one out. So I go to the roastery that I'm consulting, because I know the owner is a very specific guy, and I know always where to find him. So I find him in one of his coffee shops. And he just stands there like randomly drinking coffee, reading the magazine. He's like this really charismatic dude. And I go, Mats, what's up with these coffee competitions? I just had this American dude yesterday who was like pushing me and all about this information. I can't get my head around it. And he's like, oh, you mean the barista competitions? We're going to have it next month here. And I was like, cool. Can I compete in that? And he's like, sure. Have you ever made coffee? I said, no. But I mean, do I have to? I mean, what do you mean? Like, yeah, sure. Do you have anywhere to practice? No. And I was like, that's fine. You can practice in my lab. Wow. So he has like a lab/roastery, right? So and I mean, we don't know each other. I like he pays me a lot of money, and I help him with stuff, right?
Nice.
That's it. So he gives me the keys to his like roastery lab, like the first lowering in Europe, like a bunch of really expensive shit.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, you can come in, but you can't be here when they work. So you have to be out by 7 in the morning, right? Because they start at 7 in the morning. So I start by myself basically from 4 to 7 in the morning, trying to figure out how to like use an espresso machine. And like, it was a 2-group old school Linea Classic and a Rober Master Italian espresso grinder, pretty much, right? And I started like pushing all of these things, and I tried to steam milk, and it's a bit messy. It's like milk everywhere. There's no one there to help me. He gives me this espresso blend, because back then everyone did espresso blends. And then it goes about a month, and then I go, yeah, sure, I'll compete. It's their competition time, right? So I compete. And I mean, I don't win. Though it would be naive to think that I would ever win that, right? But I also don't lose, right? So I'm like not in the bottom, but I'm not in the top. You'd be, I mean, I sincerely was like, I started my presentation by like lighting 4 candles for the judges. This was like a dark room. You don't do this in like coffee competitions. And the judges were like, fuck. Like you can see on their face, like, dude, what are you doing? And I think they were all very nice about it, for sure. Cool. But technically, like, you don't do that. So I compete, and then after that competition, I got asked, like, Mats, the owner, kind of jokes, don't you want to work with coffee, blah, 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 and then I end up in coffee. So that's like the story behind. The way I'm trying to answer this is that competitions has been the key thing always, because it's very hard to define quality in general in the industry, right? Who is good, who is not good, right? And who is the one deciding that? And I think the competition formats for me has been a big part of that, right? As in, you compete, you lose, you're not good. You compete, you win, you're good, at least according to someone. And then if you do that long enough, then eventually, you might actually become good, right? But I think that's there's 2 sides of that, right? You have again then what let's say industry defines as good versus what I defines as good. And as I said before, without sounding too much like a douchebag, right? But April very much just coffee for Patrik, right? That's our singular purpose. No, but it is, because it's the same like a restaurant that's, they want to do good food. Yep. And it's about showcasing your version of that. Then you obviously want other people to drink that, right? Yeah. But I think that's not a good time.
Here comes the rain. Yeah.
It's like, yes. So it's hard to define that, right? But I think it feels like the industry has been kind to us, because they also understand that we kind of want the industry well. I'm a big believer in general that as a company or as a person in an industry, you have to take responsibility for that industry. You can't just take responsibility for yourself in that position, right? Yeah. And I think that's also part of the challenge with the coffee industry, where we don't have enough people that wants to make the industry better. Most people want to make themselves better, which I respect. They want to make more money as a company, which I also respect. I'm not saying I don't want to, but I think there's an element in what I do that is also considering the industry as a whole, right? That's why this like infused conversation is so interesting to me, and why I'm so like active in it, right? Yeah. But even then, there's 2 sides of that, right? Because one can argue that Patrik is right, let's get all of this out, and one can argue Patrik is wrong, get Patrik out. And I think that's a really relevant perspective, right? Because both are kind of equally true, which is why I have an expiration date in coffee also, because it's very clear that the coffee industry and Patrik is not moving in the same direction at the moment, right? Right. And I will spend a little bit of time trying to fix that, but I'm also the kind of person to, if eventually the industry chooses differently, then I will part way with the industry, right? Which is totally fine. There's plenty of things to do in life. Yeah. In coffee also. Sure. Just like in life in general. Did that make, that was a very long answer, but it's that's kind of it. Yeah.
So after you complete that first coffee competition,
yep.
You went to Beach Boy.
So we had this company, like we were kind of like, that company was a bit of a ride. We were super successful. Then we were super unsuccessful for certain specific reasons. And then we made a shitload of money. And basically at that point I think an important part of that story, which I maybe left out, was that I was not very happy with that company and how I was as a person in that. We were like in this beginning of the Swedish like tech scene. It was a lot of money, it was a lot of stuff we shouldn't do. and we, most importantly, didn't create any real kind of value. So I think my theory is that I ended up in coffee because I saw this value chain, and I saw that was kind of relevant and bigger than the individual, right? So farmer, roaster, consumer, barista, like this whole kind of value chain. And it felt like coffee was this one thing where you could make a little bit of a difference in the world, right? Because I wasn't making a difference in the world, I was making money. That was like two different things. They don't have to be different things, but in my case, they were. And I felt the need to be a little bit more grounded. So we basically sold the company. I basically told the guy that we're not going to do this anymore. We sold it, and then I went to Mats and said, yeah, let's do this. I remember one thing he told me very clearly, actually, before I signed, which I think stayed with me for a long time. And I was sitting there and was supposed to sign this contract, right? And pretty straightforward process. But before he gave me the pen, he was looking at me. It's like, Patrik, just so you know, this is the coffee industry. Everything takes time. Everything is slow. And I was kind of looking at it and I said, I'll show you. He's like an old man. So I'm going to show you. We're going to get things done. But I think he was very right. And I think that's very interesting. Then I will forever continue to question why this industry is moving forward so slowly. When I'm saying moving forward, I'm not talking about a new burst to a grinder. I mean, that's like a fun thing, but it's not really helping us, is it? I mean, it's not what this industry needs at the moment. And I'm saying that being a person that would be the first one buying that new burst because I want to make better coffee. But in a bigger perspective, that's not where the issue lies. It's not that we don't have enough hand grinders, right? We have bigger issues to deal with. And I think those issues have been neglected for a long time, which is eventually going to be problematic for us.
Yeah.
That's not in the book, but that might be in a second edition.
Of your book?
Yeah, if there ever is one. I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of things since that book, though. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's time to...
Second book, yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm done with books, at least for now. We'll see. The funny thing is, you write this book, and a lot of people got they didn't get angry, but they got a little bit disappointed, right? Because I think most people expected a coffee roasting book. Or a varietal book. We have a bunch of these coffee books that list the difference between a natural and a wash processed coffee, and we don't need another one of those, right? We don't really need another, again, hand grinder, even though I'm trying very hard to do one. But I mean, it's this kind of perspective on it, right? Which I think is interesting, and I hope that this book is able to bring a little bit of that to the industry, maybe, or at least inspire someone to do something, right? Because one of the lessons for me, so the book is basically a little bit of a 2-3 part kind of vibe thing. So it's I think I call it falling in love. Thank you. It's been a while since I wrote it, so I don't remember. The thing is, after you spend 2 years of a book, you're not going to read that book again.
Exactly.
You're so over it.
Yeah, you're done.
You're so over it. No, I mean, first part is falling in love with coffee, which is extremely cheesy. It doesn't sound like me. But it is. And then becoming a coffee professional, kind of relevant. Starting my own coffee company, And then my most important lessons. So it's 3 parts of story and 1 part of basically trying to, if you just want the good stuff, you can just go to part 4 and read that. That's the more concrete tips, right? And then everything else is bad iPhone photos. Which they are, because I wanted it to be my photos and to be relevant, right? And these are actual photos that I took from way back. That's why they look so bad. Which my designer did not like, but that's the point, right? Yeah. Do you have any questions on my book? You haven't read it, no?
No, I feel you go compete, right? You do all these things and you have a platform. And a lot of times with these competitors, after they're done, I don't hear a word from them. And it's either they're invited to like secret group industry meeting gatherings where they get to meet group, individual, whatever people who have been in the industry for years, and that's all the influence they have. And then the rest of it is just social media postings and stuff like that. And then a lot of times they don't share with the bigger people, right? The people that they should be sharing to change, or more transparency, better service, whatever that is, right? They're not. They're always invited, and either they're being paid to be a consultant and wherever they are going to be going or whatever. And I think like everyone who owns a shop, you have people that are going into your shop every day, and that's a platform for your baristas, for you to share a message. Whatever that message is going to be. Either I don't give a shit about coffee and just drink it because you don't know what you're drinking, or I could make my coffee better and share with you where it's coming from and give you better service, right? We should then bring up the level of people who know what Starbucks and your coffee, the difference. A lot of times they don't. They're like, just give me sugar or caramel or whatever, right? And our message when we were doing Asylum was purely like to do that, right? To help educate people or share a little bit more, not by shoving it down their throats, but by giving you great service, right? And great service could be, hi, how's your day? Just complimenting you, be a friend, be real. A bit hard in the industry of, we know like students and part-timers who come in to be a barista, not thinking this is going to be their final, job at the end, because mommy says I need to be a doctor or whatever, pilot or whatever, and being a barista is not where the money is, right? But if we can somehow change that perspective, and it could be about, you never know who you meet, right? This guy has met like a whole bunch of like CEOs and like big bosses who have come down to Asylum, and they brought him out for dinner, they've spoken to him. You just never know who you meet. And if we can train our baristas and our service people to understand like it's more than just my $12, $13, $15 per hour job, whatever it is, right? But I can build a relationship, I can meet new people, and it's a life skill, right? It's a life skill because you're going to be meeting people. I mean, this is what I'm saying. And you have a platform. All you coffee shop owners have a platform, and it's up to you to give like, should I just make everything like a robotic arm and make your latte art stuff and not give a shit about service? Or should I be able to train and have a HR manual, SOPs for my people to help them, bridge a gap or meet new people, or just give better service, make the world a better place. That's just where we come from. Sorry, question.
Yes. Could I squeeze something in before?
I'm late person, and I think the way you articulated vision for the self-coffee industry, right? Yeah. And I'm very thankful to be able to hear you speak today as well. Just wanted to understand in terms of how you came to Singapore. What is the combination event that you come here? That's number one, the first question. The second question is, from your perspective, being in Singapore for the past few days, what's the number one? What's your perspective of the coffee scene? Two, I think it's the question of one as a cafe, like a grocery owner. What are the challenges you see in our society? I think some of the points are important. One, being a barista might not be say some the goal that our youth have in Singapore society is very Asian, money talks, passion doesn't really end. I think the car's important, the cost important. Coffee, just to get like a latte. It's a really conversations. People want to go to cafes, which I think there are steps that our senior people towards that. I just wanted to hear your opinion on this too. One is, how do you end up in the first place? And number two, being here for the past 3 years, what's your perspective on how Singapore is? From the perspective of a barista, and from the perspective of a grocery owner, and challenges that we see. If you put yourself in the shoes of a young, aspiring person, perhaps like what your journey is like, in this Singapore context, what are the challenges you find?
Easy. So I mean, I'm here because of him. He refused to leave my coffee shop.
I went under the bar counter and slept.
Yeah, exactly. So he slept on the floor and I kicked him out. No, but he came to the store and so I'm usually, like back then we had like our office in the store.
Before that, how we met. So it was my journey for searching for the perfect brewer, the brewer that, you know, can get me more consistent coffee. And then there's the frustration at Asylum where my baristas couldn't get the same kind of cups consistently. And then the discovery of April. And this is when he just launched the glass brewer. And I'm a person for the underdog, and the person that's coming out with something new, something fresh, and somebody who has a new perspective on something new. And so I doubled down and I ordered 100 pieces from this guy and just dropped in an email. It was my first time ordering anything from Copenhagen, and it was interesting. So it was a very professional relationship, right? It was very professional. Okay.
Now it's not.
Now it's not.
We dropped
but
that
yeah,
ball.
it was great. And then when we were in Copenhagen, I was like, hey, I'm coming down. I would love to just catch up and meet, since, you know, I've been buying stuff from you, I guess. And he came down and we had a conversation. And it was a very nice conversation. I fell in love with the furniture that he had. I bought furniture for my house from Finjul. It's a Copenhagen. But give me more background on this. It's a Danish designer.
Yeah, that's a long story though.
Yeah.
He's basically the best furniture designer in the world.
Yeah. Yes, I do not disagree. So I threw out all my chairs and I bought that. I love those chairs. I fell in love with that, left, and then we were about to like take a bicycle and cycle back and with my wife, and then it was raining, and then we were trying to unlock the bike, and it was like, God damn it, the bike wouldn't unlock. And then he came out.
And I met you on the outside.
Then he came out. He came out of the shop. He was about to leave, and he was like, "Hey, where you guys going?" It's like, "We're gonna take the bike," and I'm a bit scared because my wife almost killed me twice. Because the bike lanes are really like, if you don't know what you're doing, get off the lane. Because you have to do a hand signal and stuff. They really travel by bikes. And my wife would just like brake halfway and I'm behind and I'll almost like drop and fly. Anyway, he was like, don't take the bike. It's dangerous. Come take the metro. And I mean, I never took the metro before in Copenhagen. And he came down and we were about to take the metro, and then my card doesn't work for some reason, and he bought us tickets. And that was the metro in Copenhagen is bloody expensive. I think it was a 4-day pass, and then that was $100. I was like, what? But it's an all access thing. And so he bought us that, and it was a real nice, kind gesture. We were on the same way, on the same line. And then I said, you know, if you're not doing anything, I would love to buy you dinner or something, right? And then I said, what do you eat? And it's like, this is one of my favorite restaurants. And we ended up in one of his favorite restaurants, and we had dinner. And then kind of the rest is history. The rest is kind of history in the sense of after that we kind of exchanged numbers. It was he was like sharing with us like stuff you should go and check out and eat in Copenhagen. And then when we were back in Singapore and all that, I said I would love to bring you out here. I just don't know when you will be in the area because it's quite far away. And then he was like, one day out of the blue, I'm going to be in Manila, and I'm doing this thing. And then I just said, let me fly here and let's do something. Yeah, that's that.
That's like question number 1, right? Good answer though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Everything is true. Yes. Question number 2, which I believe was what I believe about the Singapore coffee scene. I mean, you already kind of said it in the sense that I think that Singapore is very similar to where I think parts of Europe was like a few years ago, pretty much. Where, you know, this is kind of, you have the initial, let's say, movers of the market that is roasting in a certain way, brewing in a certain way, and then you have the kind of new kids. Then you have a lot of fermentation. Then you have a lot of espresso that is challenging to drink sometimes. And it's this kind of mix of like everything, right? I think the biggest issue in any coffee industry is always the people that work in the industry. That's the biggest challenge. It's not an issue, it's a challenge or an opportunity. And it's always like one of the key things at April is that we don't work with part-timers, for example. I have nothing against part-timers, but we want people that are devoted to this industry and to the company for the time they're in that with us, right? Which helps. So we've done a few things there to kind of make that easier. And I think that's for sure, that's a challenge, but it's a challenge everywhere. I don't think it's a specific Singaporean challenge. I think if anything, I would like to probably urge you guys to not like stop looking at yourself so much as like we're in Singapore and then we have all of these challenges because we're here, or opportunities. Because everything you guys are facing, everyone else in the industry has already been through. There's nothing like specifically difficult in Singapore. You guys have the same challenges.
Yep.
I think that's very like worldwide in the coffee industry, right? And I think you have a choice there where either you try, it's the same like when you're competing, either you try to give the judges what you think they want, or you just give them you. And then you live with the fact that they may not like that. But there's also an opportunity they may very well like that.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm very much the second one. So the way I run April is that I give the world, or Copenhagen, whatever you want to call it, my version of coffee. And I'm very okay if it ever comes a time where the world doesn't want that version. The difference between me and maybe others, I think, is that I would not change that version. I would then quit that version. And I think when you're in the industry, especially in the coffee, because of the financial challenges that a lot of companies I think are in, because it's not the easiest of businesses. It's also not the most difficult, but it's not the easiest. I think a lot of people.
It's not the easiest if you want quality.
But I think
feel,
that's
right?
that I'm not sure if I agree with, because quality is a choice. And I think the issue is like we had a very good dinner at a restaurant, I don't know, here in Singapore, and restaurant Sen. Anyone should go if you have time. And the thing is, a place like that works because there is not a level of compromise in what they do. The issue with coffee shops or roasteries is that they say, I want to be the best roastery and coffee shop in the world, but I will also do all of these things to make money. And unfortunately, that doesn't correlate.
Yeah.
If you want to be up playing here, you need to stop with all the shit down here.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with doing that. And again, back to the fact that everyone should do what they want to do because it's their companies, right? So whatever someone chooses to serve, it's up to them, and we should respect and love all of them, right? But don't fool yourself in thinking that you can do both, right? And I think that's something that the industry at large is kind of missing, right? I think there's always been a disconnect between what the coffee industry is communicating to the consumer and what the coffee industry is always doing. That is not aligned anywhere. Basically, we're fooling our customers 100%, right? Mainly because we have this, I think, notion or dream, or we strive to be this thing, transparent, sustainable, light roast. Like any coffee roastery's website in like across the world. And you go, none of you are sustainable and none of you are really transparent. Maybe you try to roast light and that's fine, right? But the whole point is that it's just be honest with what you want to be as a company and be that all the way. I think those are the most successful companies. I think the companies that are not able to do that will have a very hard time. And I see it again and again in the coffee industry where people are just trying to be too many different things at the same time. And either it's like people competing for the first time. They like I've been coaching people for a long time. I see people in competition for a long time, and there's one thing. It's kind of a not a joke, but it's like a standing conversation between us and me and some people that have been in the competing for longer and maybe done better than some. Is that we're always so surprised to look at these new kids because they're not trying. It's like they think that we never tried, as in like we woke up one day and then we just like knew how to get to the final in a world championship. Like that's not really how it happened though, right? It's like years of effort, years of like failed competitions where you spill shit, you pull espressos in a cappuccino cup instead of a single espresso cup. Done that. like it's so much fail and shit going on before you reach that, right? And then you have all of these people that are just calling in a coach and think they're going to win something.
Right.
All they do is waste a lot of money because they're not going to win anyway, right? And I think that's true when it comes to companies as well, right? So I don't see any challenges specific to Singapore. I see potentially a lot of excuses specific to Singapore. And I think that's very true in all the countries, right? Because I think that's what I hear in the coffee industry again and again, right? We can't do that because the customer doesn't want that. We can't do that because of this and this. But I see very few examples on people that have actually tried that, right? I mean, you have places like Tim Menebo, coffee shops that doesn't serve anything else. He's making a shitload of money. He's roasting very light and he's buying very expensive coffee. And the reason why he's able to do that, it's not even because he won a world championship a very, very long time ago, or that is in Norway. It's because he's uncompromisingly, for a very long, consistent time, trying to show the customers what good coffee is.
Yeah.
And there's like no one else in this industry that is doing that.
Yep.
And given the amount of coffee roasteries, the amount of coffee shops in the world, I'm always very surprised over how they're all the same.
Right.
And if we're all the same, we have to stop blaming the customer for us not being able to do what we want to do, and start realizing that it's actually our own fault. Because there's none of us that is actually trying to do anything.
Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Maybe that was too honest. But.
What do you feel is like the biggest issue in the coffee industry?
Well, it's the industry, right? I mean, they're funny because the solution and the issue and the challenge and the opportunity is all the same, right? People have to understand that it's people that shape the world, right? It's people that start a company. It's people that starts a movement. I think the issue with people is that they're waiting for this like messiahs of a person to come and like fix everything. And they don't realize that the people that done that in other industries are just normal people that just decided to do it, right? And I think we're lacking these people in the industry, right? And I think part of that is because we are young, we don't have the frameworks blueprints for how to do things. And then you also, I mean, you have to be okay with kind of putting yourselves out there, right? And it's hard. I mean, I should also, again, it's not easy, especially if your coffee shop is supposed to be your pension plan. You have to respect the fact that it's not, oh, you shouldn't serve this because that's not cool. Yeah, but maybe you have kids to feed. I mean, there's a level of complexity in this that we have to respect and take into consideration, right? But it's also the fact that if you then do that, then you have to realize there's certain consequences of that, right, in any shape or form, right?
Yep.
And actually, I think in the book, because I was like looking through it and I realized that this is actually someone wrote a really smart thing. Something somewhere. The world doesn't need your company. That's like in the book. I'm gonna have to say that that's like the smartest thing I ever wrote in a book. Because it's so true, right? And I mean, I'm not going to be too philosophical on you guys, because that becomes too deep. But I think that's true in so many cases, right? That the coffee industry doesn't by default need you, not as a person, not as a company, not in any shape or form. So that's like one of my core beliefs, right? Just as like a human, I'm not necessarily needed just because I'm here. If you want to be relevant, you have to work for it. You have to put yourself in a place where you are. And I think a lot of companies or a lot of people starting companies think they are relevant just because they started. But the reality is in the coffee industry, especially, I think, which is something I've thought long and hard about when moving to Copenhagen, is that when you start a roastery today, for example, or like a coffee shop, you are like, so if you go back to the idea that I believe that you should take the industry at large into consideration. When I start a company, someone else that already has a coffee company is going to get more competition. I'm making it more difficult for someone else in the industry. That's just by default, right? And the world doesn't need another coffee roastery. The world doesn't need another coffee shop. That's just facts, right? So having anyone that starts anything with the belief that the world needs me to start this has to work their ass off and prove that that's true. And I think that that's something that a lot of people should consider before they're entering, right? Because it might very well be that if your like objective as a person is to build value into the coffee industry, then maybe I do that better as an employee in this company, right? Or doing this thing here. It's not by default that you create value just because you have a company. Quite the opposite. You probably make more mess than good, right? And that could also be, like, again, like I'm not necessarily referencing that me or April is doing value or not doing value. It's more that that's part of the thought process, right? So basically you have to justify your own existence, if that makes sense, right? Which is why April goes through basically a last quarter of every year. It's like Patrik is justifying the existence of April. And I'm looking at, is there anything I think I can bring to the industry next year that justifies me running this for another year, right? Because I don't have April because I need to, I have it because I want to. As a person, I would be just as happy. Like, so one of my first jobs was like McDonald's. Burgers. I had like the record for the most amount of like Big Macs in like, because they had this test they do, they give to all the new people, and I aced that test, which I was really happy about. I was like 14. But the thing is, I would be just as happy working at McDonald's as running April. For me, there's no difference. And I think that puts me in an interesting position. Like you do things because you want to do, not because you need them. Whenever you run a company and you end up in that situation, which becomes more difficult the longer you have a company, because the longer you have a company, the more you define yourself with that, the more you're financially linked to that structure, the more your lifestyle changes. The harder, I think, for most people, it would be to let go. And that's when you get to a point where all of a sudden I'm doing all of these things just to have that company. But in my world, it's not worth having a company if it's not an exact kind of replica of the version you want to have, right? Am I answering the right question now, or are we on?
Yeah, I mean, not really.
What was the question again? Yeah, but that I just said, right? Didn't I?
Yeah.
For me personally, I feel like the general lack of effort, even people think they're putting effort, I don't think it's enough. But I feel like the biggest issue I'm facing, or I face thus far, is a general lack of understanding on particular subject, and then the refusal to understand better challenges in knowledge.
Thank you.
So I feel that one of the biggest issues I face is when people tell me something that doesn't make sense. Like, for example, generally when you go extract coffee, then you get like the more ashy, more sweet roasted, blood finish, whatever. So when people tell that like, oh yeah, it tastes like dark chocolate, just like what dark chocolate you tasted, things like right? Like from Ecuador, from Venezuela, like what percentage is dark chocolate? But when generally people over extract coffee, they tend to take the easy way out and just go, yeah, it tastes like black tea, or the black tea finish.
But my question is this coming from top? That means the top person says it tastes like that. If you do this recipe, this is how it tastes like, because whoever the top is says it. And then the guy who's pulling you those shots is not actually trained in tasting. So they're just regurgitating the information from the top.
So there's a couple of observations that can be made. Not trying to get a negative thing here, but there are a couple of observations that can be made. One can be, you see the drip pour, and you taste it, and then you let his manager or head waiter taste it, and the whole not at it, you send it out, and then it's bad.
Yeah.
So like there's that. And then like you mentioned before, like okay, if it's bad, like tell people about it. But if you tell them about it, and then you get like the black tea dish, right? how do you go about like bridging this gap in communication, gap in different versions, like understanding like what the topic is, right? Or like what coffee should be. But like you said before,
I mean, don't brew bitter coffee. Is like my I don't know. I think you're looking at it from a little. If you think that that's the biggest issue in the industry, then I think you're looking at it from a slightly different perspective.
I think the issue is we're trying to like bridge gaps, we're trying to build better communication, build like knowledge with each other, and share knowledge with each other. But whether there's a resistance to knowledge, or knowledge that conflicts with what you teach, and how do you bridge that gap?
I mean, I think it's very, at least for me, it's very rare that I come across resentment for like new knowledge. Maybe it's because I'm hanging out in different crowds, but I don't know. I always blame the teacher.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I always blame the teacher.
For sure.
It comes from the top.
Definitely, because there's no other reason, right? We always have to take responsibility for the people coming in,
100%,
or the people we work with, right? Like when we hire a new person at April, if I just say go to the roastery and do some roasting, then I can't complain at that person doing bad roasting because I haven't taught them, right?
Yep.
So I think it's more about taking responsibility for the new people or the young people, right? Then sure, we probably always going to have a generation that never wants to listen, right? But it's kind of, as I said before, the solution here is not necessarily to get everyone with you. The solution here is to work and listen and interact with the people that wants to move forward, which is why I keep on competing. Because if you're backstage in a world championship, you have the people that wants to make a difference. They're right there, right? I think if you're trying to worry about every single little situation, then it's difficult.
Yep.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm also very far away from that because we don't have those issues at April. I don't know. Maybe you have a better answer.
No, like I said, I think it's from top down.
It's like a very micro question. Yeah. Better teachers.
Better teachers.
I mean, I just put everyone through the competition system. Then I never have an issue. That's perfect. So at April you have to.
Is that what you do?
Yeah. So you have to. Competing is basically mandatory in some shape or form.
Safwan, please take note. Competing is mandatory. Every single person working at April has to do.
Not everyone is going. I'm still working on some of them.
Okay,
but their excuse is that they haven't been in Denmark for more than 2 years. So technically they can't compete.
Fine.
But which is legit actually. But I think I actually use these competitions as a structure because I tell everyone in coffee industry just compete, right? And it's not even about winning or losing. It's just about the competition structure is there to teach you the very basics, like work clean, taste your coffee, be nice when you serve the coffee, understand what you're doing, and spend time practicing, right? I think if everyone just always competed, this industry would be fine. But that's not the reality, though. That's a different thing, right?
Actually, I'm going to implement that
You
program.
should compete, though.
No.
You
What?
can't implement something if you don't do it yourself.
For sure.
That's going to be tough.
Fine. I'll do it.
It's on record now that he's competing.
I'll do it. Yeah.
In terms of that topic, how does April, like a curriculum where users go through training paths in terms of their on a yearly basis, be through competition with I don't know what sort of qualifications or sort of courses they can go through. That's the thing. And subsequently, is how you then became these people within the company. Versus learning the skills, trading, and then opening up their own cafe, and now being another investor, brother.
It's a very Singaporean thing, no? Yeah. Yeah.
How does people manage it in terms of trading and sustaining people?
I mean, I think it's like step one is pay them well, treat them well. That's like very simple, and I think that's maybe forgotten sometimes in the industry. It's also this mix of like, we can't really expect a lot from people if we don't give them a proper work environment.
Yeah.
Proper work hours. We do a few simple things where like we minimize the shop opening hours. We're closed 2 days a week. Soon we'll be closed 3 days a week, so that our staff can focus on other things as well. I think that's important. And then for us, it's just building an internal culture, again, very much based around competitions, where they learn coffee from that perspective and they practice coffee through that perspective. Then there's not really any easy way around that. It's just like continuous practice, continuous evaluation. And I think, which is maybe one of the main challenges as an owner, is to actually always continue to do that, let's say, quality control, right? Especially in April, being a small company. But I think for like, we've been very, I mean, you'd be amazed over what's happened with your coffee quality when you don't have to worry about serving sandwiches at the same time. Because then you give people space to focus. And then we're all, including myself, very involved still in the coffee brewing, and kind of all aspects in terms of how we develop things. We have very specific rules to follow internally in terms of how we brew coffee, in terms of what we serve and not serve. Like something that the restaurant world has done for a very long time is that they've worked with, let's say, what is referred to as a test kitchen, like a way to experiment on dishes and beverages outside of service. I think what kills the coffee industry is the fact that we're experimenting on our customers, which is not allowed at April. But for us, so far it hasn't been an issue. It's the same with our shop in Seoul as well. I think just being very clear helps. Yeah. What was the last question? I mean, good people will always leave. And that's a very natural process. People leaving is an opportunity for me to get in new, better people. And I think the key thing for us is that we treat everyone equally, right? So if you're a part of April, you're a part of April. I don't care if you're there for 6 months or 10 years. If you do a shit job, you're gonna hear about it. If you do a good job, you're gonna hear about it. It's very straightforward. People leaving is a natural evolution of all things. Then April is very much trying to create a situation where people wants to stay, has the opportunity to stay. I started a company mainly because I couldn't find another company that allowed me to do what I wanted to do. I think that's the main reason for many people to start companies. So I mean, we have a few examples. Let's say our Korea store, the Seoul store is a good example. Literally started because I have my Copenhagen store manager moving to Korea. And it was like, you're a great guy, you do good stuff, why don't we try to open up a store in Korea, right? I wouldn't have had a store in Korea if it wasn't for him moving there, right? So that's me acknowledging that I have someone in value here and I'm going to continue to invest in him. I think that's the main thing. Then, I mean, all the politics of people leaving and working somewhere else is just tiring. I don't know. I never understood why the coffee industry is so obsessed with that as a concept. If people are not at April, they're not at April. Doesn't matter what they do. Yep. They're not at April. I focus on the people that are with the company and we build as strong as possible. And it's very naive as a business owner to believe that everyone stays. I mean, I'm the guy that has an expiration date on my own coffee career, which means, I mean, people shouldn't work at April forever. I almost have the opposite problem where it's like time to, like people have been here for too long and maybe it's time for them to actually move on, right? Right. Because I think it's a natural progression in life. Then I would love April to be a company where we can always grow together with the team. But you know, sometimes the team grows in a different direction. And the fact we're still a tiny company, if we were like Starbucks, I think we would do some really cool shit, but we're not like, so we don't have that resources, and we don't have as many, and we don't have enough positions in the company, so to speak, right?
Yep.
Which I think is one of the main issues in the coffee industry.
Progression.
Yeah. It's like, where do you go? Most people, and I did it twice in my previous career, you get to the point where the person above you is the owner of the company.
Yep.
And it's like, we're not going to take over that. And I mean, then you go, what am I supposed to do next, right? And if you're a person that wants to do new things, worry more about the people that stay in your company than leave your company. Like that's, I think, the key thing. And make sure that the people staying are the right people, right? Because some people also just stay for the sake of staying, which is also not always a good thing, right?
Yeah, but again, I think as a boss, if you're a boss, you are the ceiling, right? And I think if you're not dreaming and you're not looking for something moving forward, then your people are stuck at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? And you need to kind of dream for them sometimes, because sometimes they don't have any other vision, or I'm forever going to be pulling shots. Can there be something more? What is the next level for me? Because the moment there is nothing else to go up to, I'm out, or I start my own shop, right? And it's a trend in Singapore, right? Everybody just does that. But I think because as bosses, we're not thinking, what is the next step? I gave them all dreams and visions. They have to have something to work towards to progress, to jump to the next level. If not, then it's like a game, right? If not, I'm going to play the same level over and over again, and I'm done with this game. I quit. Yeah.
I think a big part for April has always been that we're so far. I think most people looking at what we do see that we're still kind of progressing and developing as a company. So it's. Since I'm raising the bar all the time, I don't think that people are going to be stagnating too fast, so to speak.
Yep.
But yeah, let's see. No, I mean, I think that it's one of the main challenges in the coffee industry, right? But it's also a very, again, like a natural thing. No?
Yes.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh. Now she's got the mic. We've got the mic now, yes.
Okay.
We had to say,
I just want to say that what you said earlier was very memorable. The people who are actually entering the competitions, the coffee competitions, are actually the people who wants to make a difference in the coffee world. And I think that was very inspiring for those people who want to pursue.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I have two questions.
Go for it.
These are just light questions for the both of you. And out of curiosity, any story behind your company names, Asylum and April? And second one, when you were starting your company, was there a specific target customers that you were aiming for?
You want to go first, or I can go first?
I'm not going to talk about the name because no one likes the story. Because I don't have this sexy story.
I got a name for mine.
Do you have a good story?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay. He's like a storyteller. Yeah, I can start with the second one, and I think No, I'm not going to say I'm there. I have no clue what other people do. I'm just going to say that April never had a target audience. April never has a marketing. We never paid for marketing.
Yeah.
Which I'm quite happy about. We never had a social media employee. We will never have a social media employee. I'm the social media employee. But I don't like April, again, and I can't stress this enough. We're only here to make tasty coffee. We haven't tried to do anything else. Never. And then people have been kind enough to support us. It's not because we have a strategy to hook them or give them special offerings, or we're just here to make tasty coffee. It's the only strategy we have, and it's the only strategy we will ever have. Name-wise, so it's in the book. It's not a good story. So I was asked by a good friend of mine. We were sitting having coffee outside of the Bredsa Roastery in Berlin, and she was like, I said, I'm going to move to Copenhagen next week and start my company. And she was like, okay, what are you going to call it? And I said, April. And that was the first time I ever thought about it. It was the first time I was ever asked about it. Could be related to my birthday. Probably related to some kind of seasonality in coffee. Very much related to the fact that I spent a long time in the company I worked with before having to explain that name all the time, and that was very frustrating. Most importantly, I think the final choice was based on the fact that I wanted a name that wasn't, could be anything. So like I didn't want it to be April Coffee or whatever you call your company. I wanted it to be a name that could potentially be whatever it needed to be in the future. Because initially we didn't know. Then it's also just a simple, beautiful name. Like me and names is, and I said this before to someone else, but I've had friends that paid a lot of money to people to come up with their brand. Like that's the thing, right? People actually pay money for people to come up with their brand strategies and like logos and shits. It's like paying someone to tell you the name of your kids.
Could be
I will never. That could be a business. I know. The naming of kids. You mean? Okay. I don't know. I think it's so funny.
Right, like the Chinese medium or something will pick out some name for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Depending on when they're born, if you want them to be more lucky, whatever.
But that I support 100%. But business-wise, I don't, because I don't get it. It's like a business is literally your little baby, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why on earth anyone else would name that baby for me.
Yeah.
And I also have no, like, which I guess is also opposite to Asian culture potentially, but I don't see, there's no value in an individual name itself. The value is what you bring into that name or build into that name, right? So Apple is only a really cool name because what they brought into Apple. If Apple was a shit coffee shop, it wouldn't be so cool.
Yeah. For sure.
Right? Yeah. And I think that's the whole point, right? So for me, it was never I'm not going to tell the story because it's not so nice towards the owners, but I have a very good friend in Paris that paid a shitload of money to come up with a name I shouldn't mention, but that was interesting actually. So that's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
What's your story?
The Asylum is just, we wanted to be a home.
They're storytellers, so they have a lot of cool
So, if you don't know about our other company, our company is called And So Forth. We do immersive dining stuff.
Pretty
so
cool.
There's actors, set design. If you've never seen it, go check it out. Around the world in 80 days. Absurdities. The secret restaurants behind Asylum. So Asylum, if you look at the design of the thing, all the letters, they have a meaning behind it. The A is a little home, house. The S is 2 espresso cup handles. The Y is the porter filter upside down. The L is the facade of that building that we're in. And the M is an old Peranakan shop house window. And Asylum, just when I created it, if you look at the way the shelf the roof-ish kind of like thing that we built up, the rattan thing, that's kind of like what we wanted to feel like a roof, to make you feel like a home. And the way it's designed is that the bar and the people are facing each other at all times to facilitate communication. And the main thing that I was telling Safwan when we were building this thing was we wanted to ensure service. Right, because service, we went to 40 different coffee shops before we opened, and the main thing we found lacking was service. Everything was very transactional, right? And the second was very acidic coffee, not a nice acidity. And that was the 2 things that we set out to do when we were building Asylum. First was to facilitate communication and service, right? And second is to make coffee nice to drink.
What was the target audience then?
There wasn't any.
There wasn't any. Yeah. The neighborhood maybe.
Yeah, we knew that there would be a neighborhood that traffic light was going to be Chai Seng Wat, right? It was like you're definitely going over from the MRT over that side, and you might pop by and try it one time, but you might stay for the service after. And it's kind of like what has happened, right? A lot of people say, I was on the way to Chai Seng Wat and then I stopped by you guys and I've never went back. It's like, that's great. Thanks, man. But not saying that they're bad. Chai Seng Wat started off like really good. And I think sometimes it's great, sometimes, But that's the thing with expansion, right? And they're expanding quite a bit. They have expanded. That's why when people ask, are you going to ever have another Asylum? I don't know. Not in Singapore. I think it's a nice special shop here for now. We are looking at other regions in the world. We just came back from LA. Might be a thing. Don't know. See how that goes. But that's kind of like the story of Asylum. We wanted home away from home. The tagline is coffee first, service first. People ask which is first. I say both are important. That's why they're both at our priority. Yeah. And it's been 2 years since then. Yeah. Yes.
You had one, right?
I will go back to the book.
Yes, back to the book. Yes.
And I don't know where I put it. You mentioned that it's the hardest part for you to write the book, Morning Coffee, right? Yeah, so back then to such successful journey you had, and do you have very low time that you mentioned about like, should I go, should I stay? Decide that you any time that you feel like I'm going to quit this coffee shit. Keep you going.
Because I'm shit, or because the coffee is shit. No, I'm not the kind of person. Yeah. So what's the low time? What is the low time?
As a barista, not as a boss.
Not as a boss. A barista, I don't understand why you have a low time. It's an amazing time. Like the most like fun summer or like period in coffee was like my first summer in a coffee shop. We just had a lot of fun all the time. Served like coffee. I don't know. It was pretty awesome. My time as a barista has only been nice. As a business owner, a roaster is also only like I never really. Sure, you go through. I mean, I think the one thing in the book which is interesting is when I moved to Berlin. The person I was working for kind of missed out on telling me what I was supposed to do in Berlin. So we had a like at that time Damateo, we just won like one of the most prestigious like roasting competitions in the Nordic roasting competition, blah blah blah. And then I was like, okay, I'm about to leave. I'm leaving. I moved to Berlin. And then the guy hiring me in Berlin failed to say that what they actually wanted me to do was to roast all of their private label account they just got because the owner, the roaster they had didn't want to touch it. And it was basically roasting like 4 tons of Robusta per week. That wasn't necessarily a low point. It was a turning point in the sense that I became a really good roaster because of it, because I roasted a shitload of coffee. But I think that was definitely a time in the industry where I went, should I just go back to Gothenburg? Because I'm not here to roast dark roasted espresso blends. But I chose to stay. So I don't think I have any specific low points. I mean, it's been pretty smooth. Not saying that it hasn't been difficult, right? But I kind of like when it's difficult. So for me, it's not much of an issue. The other question was, what was the other question? Yes, because this is interesting because I talk about this in Manila at this presentation and people were like, what's wrong with you? Because I had this like presentation for like an entrepreneurial group, like business, like really like snobby business owners, which was cool. It was nice of them to invite me. And I was like, yeah, I'm in coffee because I'm so fucking frustrated with this industry. And I think that's a really good driver to have. And sincerely, as I said before, I think coffee kind of sucks. And I think where our guests and the rest of the world deserves us doing a better job than what we're doing. And I think that's a very like positive driver for me. Yeah. Because I see a lot of room for improvements. Yeah. And I think that improvement is very difficult. Therefore, I kind of justify it by saying that I think the work that I'm trying to do is relevant. If we were already in that perfect spot, then the industry wouldn't need me. Yeah. So I think that's the driver. Yeah.
Hi, Patrik. Okay, I think I have a question with regards to it. For yourself, having competed many times, you really go into competition having a certain routine, a set, a story, and then find that perfect coffee, or the other way around. You found another coffee that you really love, and then find a concept or story that revolves around.
I think it's a good question, and it deserves like many different answers, maybe. But I think it's different. Like, let's say what I did in Melbourne really came out of my dislike for competition coffees, where everyone is spending 15 minutes talking about processing. So I chose to spend 15 minutes talking about varietals, which I think is much more important. And like what I'm going to do in Athens now is based on a coffee that is absolutely fucking amazing. It's like the best coffee I ever tried. And I'm going to bring that to the stage and I'm going to show them what good espresso is.
Nice.
And then I'm going to build a concept basically around that. But it always starts to something, like it has to be something you're interested in. It has to be something that is relevant. It would be foolish not to consider that you need a coffee that is a tasty coffee. We always have people that are trying to, I think maybe someone wants to prove that a certain kind of coffee can taste good when maybe it doesn't taste so good. But that's the issue with the competition, is that the judges wants to taste the best coffee in the world. Yep. So you kind of need to try to bring that. But for me, it's very different. Like I did in Denmark now when I won, I did a fermentation presentation, which I think was a little bit of again in Melbourne, I did a varietal presentation, and I was excited that I found a coffee with a modern processing method that actually kind of spoke to me, that made sense. And I wanted to showcase that. I also wanted to show the world that I don't by default hate all new processing. There's good stuff in there as well. I'm just trying to tell the world that most of it is maybe not so good. So it really depends, but I think as a general rule, it always comes from, like what I said before, as well as about competitions being a place where people kind of invest and show that they care about the industry. I think that's very true. The people on that stage, the people judging, like to this day, I will not stand people that talk shit about judges. Like, I'm not going to slap them in the face, but I'm like I'm not going to be friends with them, right? Anyone that is investing their free time in making us better should be like praised. Yeah. They shouldn't get shit, good or bad. That's like just how it is. And competitions is all about sharing with the industry. I think that's the main reason why I do it. It's a platform for sharing my perspective. So everything I do always comes out of what I want to do and what I feel is relevant. I think that's also, in the end, you spend so much time on it. So if it's not relevant to you, it's very hard to motivate. That's why, people should bring their own coffees. Or it has to come from you, right? We have this slightly, I think, toxic thing going on in the industry where we have a lot of people relying more on consultants than themselves, kind of. Not saying that it's not smart to bring in a consultant. Like, some people know stuff, and that's interesting. And certain things you need to know, and you need to read the rules. Is he hiding? No, here he is. Yeah. Which I think is the main thing.
Read the rules.
That's like, I can't stress that enough, and people still don't. Yeah. Does that make sense? Cool.
I'd like to know, where did you take your energy from? Because you mentioned that you are a roaster, business owner, and now you got like 2 outlets in Korea and you are so active in competitions. So do you ever, to be honest, do you ever feel drained?
Do I ever?
Drained? Do you feel drained or fatigued for doing so many things?
Not so far. Maybe it will come. No, I mean, I think it's, one, I'm having a lot of fun with it. 2, it's always my choice to do it. I don't do things because other people want me to do it unless I want to do it. I think that helps. I mean, it's definitely difficult, and you have to be, as a business owner, you have to, you have to build a good team, and you have to allow them to be something that you can rely on. I think that's what a lot of business owners, they go wrong, where they're not able to, let's say, educate or enforce or empower people to run things well. I have a great team at April, and that allows me to be a little bit more free. Like this year, which is interesting, because when I started April, like the first 4 years, this is like the first year where I'm not there on a production day. And I used to go like at one trip, one time I did like Shanghai events, Tokyo events, Taiwan events, all in November. And we're producing Monday, Tuesday. So that means on Wednesday, I fly to Shanghai. On Saturday night, I fly back to Copenhagen. Production Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Tokyo, Saturday, back to Copenhagen. And yeah, well, the Seoul was the last actually, sorry. Because I had to, it was a necessity more than anything else, right? And now we're at a point where we have a really strong team, so that's less of a challenge. But I don't know, I don't really feel that it's an issue. I mean, to be fair, if it wasn't for COVID, maybe I wouldn't have written the book. Like COVID gave me a bit of free time, but I think if you're efficient and deliberate and don't watch so much Netflix, you'd be surprised over how much you can actually do, right? People have time. The thing is, everyone has a sufficient equal amount of time in life, right? It's just that you choose to do other shit with it.
Yep.
Which is fine, right? But it's no one else's fault that you do other things with your time, right? Yep. So I think people will be surprised over how much you could actually do.
Yeah. It's true.
Maybe. Yeah, I think that was a good answer.
Yes, question. We're about time, yes.
Fair enough. Sorry for that. You can always, yeah.
What's like what was the best drink? Like what was the best like you ever had?
Like coffee.
Yeah, best coffee you ever had.
Like served to me or like cupped or served to me? That's very difficult. It's rare you get served a good coffee.
Now, like the second question, what's like your favorite ice filter recipe?
Ice filter.
They do have an ice filter.
YouTube.
Recipe. YouTube it.
Coffee with April.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know that in my head, sorry. We also don't do so much iced coffee. But I always do like Japanese style. Brew hot over ice. Yeah.
That's what we do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It tastes better. I don't like cold brew.
Yeah.
His cold brew is pretty good. I don't like cold brew.
Hey, endorsed.
Yeah, because I tried it. Endorsed by Patrik. Best coffee I've had served. Fuck, I should know this. It feels really...
If not, then cupped.
Cupped, that's easy. That's the coffee I bring to Athens.
Oh, damn.
I cupped that in February. Served.
You don't have to answer if it's not on top of your head.
Now I'm thinking Tim Medelbow when I was young. That's maybe not true. I got a really good espresso here in Singapore. Maxi.
Yeah, Maxi.
They're like a washed Kenyan coffee.
Nice.
Solid. Yeah. Maybe not best in my life, but like from my what I can remember, like it's been a while since I had an espresso served in a coffee shop that was that good.
Nice.
Probably a few years. Yeah.
As a competitor, I'm usually preparing for competition. Most of the time, there will be a roadblock that you'll be facing. Because I myself compete locally quite often in Singapore. So I do sometimes have a wall that I hit where I can't think of recipes that I can come up with a compete. For you, how do you usually figure out how fast that wall that you usually research about or you prepare for your competitions?
Yeah, so for me that never happens. At least not saying, I mean, the hard part with competing is still serving tasty coffee. It depends a bit on the competition. If it's brewers, there's no reason why you can't serve the best coffee ever made, because it's an easy competition. It's not easy to win, but it's easy to execute. Barista is a different story. For me, the secret to whatever competition success I have, and I think we also mentioned this the other day, is that competition for me, or trying to brew the best coffee in my life, is like an everyday kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's not like, no, I'm going to compete, so let's start practicing. Like, I'm always on it. Everything we've implemented at April, every approach we do, all the brewing we do, all the roasting we do, it's all to make the best espresso, best filter coffee in the world.
Yeah.
So when I compete, I don't have a massive step. I don't have to change everything. I don't have to buy from other farms. We already buy from the best farms in the world. I don't have to create a new brewer. I'm working on that too, though. So I think for me, that step is not so big. And I'm always looking to make coffee better. So I think there's definitely, challenges to some degree maybe, but never at a point where I'm not able to come up with something. It's very rare.
He was saying something like, if let's say you're going to compete and the competition is, the notice is next week, are you ready, like straight off the bat, to go? And that's because he's always training, it's always ready, which is something like I think it's quite cool to have, to know and to be.
If someone tells me to go up like tomorrow, I go up and I'll try to, and I'm not going to say I'm going to win, but I'll be pretty close.
Yeah.
Because it's completely unsustainable if anyone, like if you seriously want to go, I want to win a world championship, which I think I've proven I'm quite serious about.
Yep.
Then if you think you can do that by not practicing for 10 months, then start practicing a month before your national, and then hope to win a world championship. You're not going to win a world championship. When we have to give that competition enough respect for that, right? I think a lot of competitors are they're very surprised. Why don't I never win? It never goes the way I want to. Well, it's because when you don't practice, someone else's is.
Yeah.
That's like the name of the game in competitions.
Yes.
So all the time you spend not practicing, someone else is. And chances are, if you meet that person, they're gonna beat you. So a little bit of practice all the time. I take 20 to 30 minutes a day, every day, focusing on competitions.
Okay, time.
Are we done? You're just gonna cut me off like that? Okay.
Question.
Okay.
One more question. Last one.
One last question.
Last one.
Make it a good one.
Yes, no?
No?
They squeezed everything out of you.
You mean I answered everything? Yeah. If you have more questions, read the book.
Yes.
That's all in there.
Okay, so before he leaves, let's take a group picture. Yeah?
Cool.
Yeah? Let's do that.
We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.